The funniest part is she ended up with that school thug. They even got married, but now I've been sent back in time to start all over. How can I still be losing my mind over her right now? Sitting in the teacher's office listening to those two tell their story, I just find it hilarious. In my past life, I tried so hard, but I failed at everything in the end. At first, I couldn't even understand why the teacher wouldn't believe me. But then I realized this whole interrogation was just a staged play from the start. Zhao Tianlei is the son of the director of education, and the homeroom teacher obviously knew that. So no matter how I explained it, the other side wasn't going to be punished. And Chen Siruo, she didn't have my back either, of course. After hearing their side, the homeroom teacher Song Wanbo immediately nodded and said, "I see. You and her can head back first." Song Wanbo didn't even flinch. He looked at me and said, "So Lin Yifei, your grades aren't bad. So how did this happen?" At this critical stage, even if you like Chen Siruo, you could have waited until after graduation to pursue her. Resorting to violence like that is wrong, you know. Your punishment has been decided. You are to write a 1,500-word apology letter. Then there will be a school-wide announcement. You only have a little over 100 days left until the college entrance exams. Don't let this ruin your future. My face remained expressionless as I heard this. I wanted to refuse. Song Wanbo glared at me. "What did you say, refuse? Do you have any idea how big of a mistake you've made? Fighting is inherently wrong? And at this critical time before the exams, the other family isn't even pressing charges. You're lucky that's all they're doing. And let me tell you, whether you write that apology or not, you're getting disciplined regardless. If you won't admit your mistake, then I'll just have to call your parents." I let out a look of pure contempt as the teacher started typing on his computer. I knew perfectly well that whatever I said was useless right now. The injustices of my past life, I won't let them happen again. Zhao Tianlei Chen Siruo, just you wait and see. The atmosphere in the office became incredibly tense and suffocating. Song Wanbo was still pounding away at his keyboard drafting the disciplinary notice. I stood there calmly like an outsider watching a show. My silence clearly annoyed the teacher. He looked up and asked, "How long do you plan on standing there? Go write that apology." I didn't answer, I just stared at him with a look that said it all. "I'll show you the truth very soon. That 1,500-word letter will never be finished, because I didn't do a single thing wrong in this entire mess. People who rely on power will eventually pay the price. Whether you write it or not, you're getting disciplined. If you won't admit you're wrong, I'm calling your parents." I just laughed. Then the homeroom teacher began printing out the decision. He opened the student records to find my mother's phone number and dialed it directly. Honestly, I didn't care one bit. Compared to the injustice I suffered in my past life where I even failed my college entrance exams, that was the real disappointment to my parents. Now nothing can stand in my way. No matter what you say, I'm not writing that apology. My answer is still the same. I'm not wrong, and the truth, you know it better than anyone. Go ahead, discipline me or whatever. After saying that, I turned and walked out of the office. Are you kidding me? I'm a time traveler? You think I'm scared of you? Now that I've been sent back to senior year, I will absolutely not bow my head anymore. Besides, back then, I failed the exams and my life fell apart. My whole being took a massive hit. But now those exam questions are still crystal clear in my head. I swear the glory that belongs to me, I'm taking it all back. When I walked back into class, the whole room started buzzing. What happened? How'd it go? My close friends crowded around asking me for the details. I just chuckled and said, "What do you think?" He wants me to write an apology, say I'm sorry, and then announce my punishment to the whole school. But I told him no way. Not happening. After that, I sat down and pulled out my books to start studying properly. Next to me, Chen Bei gave me a thumbs up and laughed. "Niece, you told him you wouldn't write it. What did he say?" I shrugged and said casually that he's calling my parents. But when Chen Siruo heard this, she got all tense. She immediately walked over and dragged me out into the hallway. Chen Siruo started lecturing me with this worried face. "How could you talk back to the teacher like that? You won't write the apology. What if this turns into a huge deal? Look, I know you're mad because I lied. I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't want to do it, but think about it. If we both get in trouble, it's way worse than if you just take the fall yourself, right? You just want me to get punished too so you can feel better." Chen Siruo put on a pitiful begging face, hoping she could talk me into taking the blame for the whole thing. In my past life, I actually listened to her and ended up shouldering everything alone, becoming a total idiot. But there's no way I'm making the same mistake this time. I still refused. Besides, you don't even like Zhao Tianlei, so why are you helping him? Chen Siruo quickly tried to explain, "I'm not helping him, I just don't want things to get more complicated. If you don't want to write the apology letter, I can do it for you." Just admit you were wrong to the teacher and this will all blow over. Do we really need to get our parents involved? Chen Siruo couldn't but grab my arm. With puppy dog eyes, she whimpered, "Please, I'm begging you. I really don't want my parents to find out. If you help me, I'll do whatever you want." I played along with a smirk. "Whatever I want." Chen Siruo bit her lip and muttered, "Don't you like me? I could give you a chance to date me." I just laughed. "Sorry, you can save that chance for someone else." With that, I headed back to class. I was blind in my past life, but am I really going to stay blind in this one? I want to chase my true dream girl this time. Who would choose a fake white lotus like you? Suddenly, my eyes lit up. Right now, that girl is probably still being bullied at the school next door. Before long, my homeroom teacher called me into the office again. This time, I saw my mom looking at me with a complicated expression. She clearly didn't expect her kid to actually get into a fight over some puppy love drama. After all, up until now, I'd always been a good kid. The obedient type whose grades were always top tier. "I've told your mother everything. Explain yourself to her, Mr. Song." The homeroom teacher sighed as my mom pulled me to the corner of the office to talk. "Mom, listen," whispered the real story into her ear and finally pulled out my phone to show her the texts Chen Siruo had sent me. My mom was furious once she realized her son was being framed. She snapped, "How could this girl lie like that?" She immediately shoved the phone in front of Mr. Song, our teacher, and argued back. "My son is not lying about this, and he wasn't just following some random internet friends." This classmate told him she was being harassed, and my son just couldn't stand by and watch. The homeroom teacher, Mr. Song, widened his eyes. He hadn't expected those texts to exist. However, he gritted his teeth and said that while lying is wrong, Lin Yifei's violent behavior was a fact and the person he hit was a student athlete. If that guy's limbs were injured, it could ruin his exams. Then Mr. Song turned his lecture back on me. "Lin Yifei, I just want you to reflect on the fight. No matter what, you can't just go around hitting people. Did she lie? I'll make sure to deal with her later." Forget about all that. For a second, you're still in the wrong here, right? I just laughed and said, "Ha, forget about all that. Unbelievable. Who would have thought a teacher could actually say something like that? He's ignoring the truth. Am I just supposed to be the villain? Here, fine. Why should I be the only one punished? Let all three of us get punished together and have it on our records. I don't care." Mr. Song was fuming. "Look at this kid. He messes up and doesn't even have an ounce of regret. Is that how you apologize? You still dare to talk back to me? I guess a 1,500 word reflection? Paper isn't enough for you. You're going to write at least 3,000 words and face public criticism in front of the entire school. You don't show a hint of remorse." While I just laughed and shot back, "Sir, I bet Zhao Tianlei won't get any of these punishments right. Are you even sure you're fit to be a teacher?" Hearing this, the director jumped up and roared, "Lin Yifei, how dare you insult your teachers?" "Look, Director Song Wanbo then turned to complain to my mother standing nearby. "You see that? Look at this kid's attitude. I'm done dealing with this. Go straight to the dean's office." "What's the point of going to the dean? You think I'm stupid, Zhao? Tianlei is the dean's son. You think he's going to let his own kid take the fall?" After I said that, 30 minutes later, we were in the dean's office. "The dean," Liu Rong said with a cold face, "I heard everything you said in the faculty lounge earlier. You're Lin Yifei's guardian, right? Let's put aside who's right or wrong for a second and just talk about his attitude. He disrespected his teacher, and your director is so stressed his heart is acting up. If you don't discipline him at home, then hear this. He must read a 3,000-word apology in front of the whole school. His behavior has been terrible. If he doesn't own up to his mistakes and change his ways, our school can no longer teach him." Hearing that last part, my mom he-yaching panicked. "Dean, what do you mean? Are you trying to expel my son?" He's a senior director. Liu Rong sat there with a judgmental look on his face. He has zero respect for teachers. He even said they weren't fit to teach. A student like this is truly untrainable. It's not that we don't want to teach him, it's that we simply can't. My mom tried to explain, "I know he's a bit stubborn," but before she could finish, I spoke up. "Mom, it's no big deal. If not here, I'll just transfer. If number 1 high won't take me number 2, next door is just as good." Dean Liu Rong was absolutely livid. He pointed at me and yelled, "Look at him. Look at your son. I'm giving him one last chance. Either he writes a serious apology or he's expelled." I laughed. "Fine, I'm done with this school." Once word got out, the whole class was buzzing. "You better look for a new school, right? Now, how are you going to take the SATs if you transfer? Why not just write the apology?" My close friends kept trying to convince me. After all, college is a huge deal. It defines your life. My homeroom teacher just told me if you write that 3,000-word reflection and apologize to him, this whole thing goes away. Otherwise, our class won't even have chemistry anymore. Liu Ziyan said, looking speechless. It's all your fault? You got in trouble for fighting fine, but why drag us into it? Can't you just apologize? Why? Should the whole class suffer because of you? Chen Siruo said the teacher was cooling off, but then you had to go and talk back. And didn't you just get Chen Siruo in trouble too? Getting yourself disciplined wasn't enough. Now Chen Siruo has to call her parents. You happy now? Look, she's crying. She said her parents are already on their way. Are you even a man? How could you make a girl cry like that, right? Then the room suddenly went silent. Vice Principal Guo Haibo cleared his throat twice and said, "Who is Lin Yifei? Come out here for a second." My classmates all looked at me with mixed emotions. Then I headed out to the hallway. I was called into a private meeting with Vice Principal Quach Haibok. I thought we'd negotiate reasonably, but instead I got an earful of criticism. He told me that even if a teacher is wrong, a student has no right to talk back. He asked if my decent grades made me think I was a big shot. Then he started yelling, "We at First High have no shortage of students. Like you, if you don't want to be here, then just get out." I just stared at him blankly and replied, "Fine." The vice principal was so angry, he could barely breathe. He'd clearly never met a student this defiant before, so he just barked, "Then you're expelled. Get out." Right? Then, Sai Nyok's parents finally arrived, but instead of scolding their daughter, they immediately demanded she cut all ties with me. Her mother pointed a finger at me, cold and condescending. "Who do you think you are? Accusing our daughter of lying. This boy needs to be transferred immediately. He can't stay in the same class as our Sinyok. I can see he's still harassing her." My mother was absolutely livid when she heard that and was ready to tear into them, but I stepped in and told them I was dropping out. "Don't worry, lady. Once I leave, my grades will only get better." The physics teacher Qin Hui stood nearby and sighed. "There's a physics competition next month that I was planning to sign you up for. It's a massive opportunity. With your talent, you'd likely win and earn some major bonus points for the college entrance exams. Only one person per class gets a spot, and now that you're leaving, it'll have to go to someone else." Sinyuk's mother didn't skip a beat. She smiled shamelessly and asked, "Oh, it gives bonus points. Well, what about our daughter Sinyuk? Why don't you let her have a shot at it?" The teacher just gave a dry laugh. Her physics skills are mediocre at best. 2 days later, I took my withdrawal form to the homeroom teacher Tong Wanbo for a signature. "You're throwing your whole life away," he snapped. He lectured me, saying he'd never seen a student as reckless as me. "It's a shame your grades are so good. I was even going to register you for the chemistry bowl." I just looked at him calmly and said, "Sir, if you apologize to me right now, I might consider staying to win that chemistry title for you." His face turned red instantly. He scribbled his name on the form and said, "Take this to the education office, get the director's signature, and then hand it to the principal." A while later, I arrived at the education office, another one the official asked before signing. They threw a few sarcastic remarks my way, and finally I made it to the principal's office. But this time I was there to see the man in charge. I took a deep breath and greeted him. "Principal, I'm Lin Yifei. I'm here to finalize my withdrawal. Please sign this." I handed him the form. Principal Liu Chenyun frowned as he glanced at the paper. The reason listed here says, "Conflict with the English teacher, making it impossible to continue studying." So you're that student? Who talked back to the teacher, aren't you? What a waste. Even the principal felt it was a pity. Losing a student with such high potential over a dispute like this was a loss for the school. But he figured a student who fights and disrespects authority just couldn't be kept around. I gave a small smile and an idea struck me. "Principal, I heard First High is applying for provincial key school status. If you want my help, I have one condition. If the homeroom teacher and the instructors apologize to me, I'll consider staying. Like I said, sir, I know the school is aiming for that. Top-tier key school status. If you want me to help you secure it, I need those apologies first. If they do that, then I'll think about staying." At that moment, Principal Liu Shenyun gave me a cold glare. This was the first time she'd seen someone with the guts to make such a demand. It was beyond arrogant, no respect for elders, talking back to a teacher and even demanding an apology. She immediately signed the withdrawal papers. Back in class, I started packing my things to leave. My deskmate Sube let out a heavy sigh and said, "What a waste. From now on, there's no one left for me to copy off of." I shot him a look and laughed. "Is that all you know how to do? Why don't you try studying for once?" Sube explained. "I'm just bad at it, but I can't help myself. What else can?" I remembered in my past life, Sube was one of my few close friends. Since we didn't do well on the college entrance exams, we actually ended up in the same city, and it was Sube who told me he'd caught Chen Siruo and Zhao Tianlei dating. Even shortly after graduation, word got out that the two were getting married. They invited so many high school classmates to the wedding, and in the end, I was the only fool left in the dark. Thinking about it now is just hilarious. Back then, Su Bei would glance at Chen Siruo from a distance and start whispering complaints. Word was Chen Siruo's mom even came to class to greet the other students, asking everyone to keep an eye out so that her daughter wouldn't be harassed by me anymore. After hearing all that, I just laughed and said it's fine. I'm transferring schools anyway. Finally, the school bell rang. Out! Everyone started packing their bags, and it was time for me to leave this school for good. I turned to walk out the door, but was called back. Hey, Chen Siruo said hesitantly. I didn't mean to hurt you. I saw you getting into trouble and having to drop out. Her conscience seemed to kick in a little, so I turned around. I looked her dead in the eye. With a blank expression, I said, to be honest, when you lied to the teachers, I was beyond pissed. I never thought you were that kind of person. Chen Siruo looked like she was about to cry and said defensively, no, how could I ever hurt you on purpose? I looked at the girl in front of me, and any shred of affection I once had was completely gone. Her explanations were just a cover-up. Deep down, she was trash. I couldn't even stop myself from snapping at her. You really are pathetic, actually sleeping with Zhao. Tian Lai like that. After saying that, I just walked away. I'd been holding those words in for so long. Even when they got married in my past life, I'd imagined cussing them out a million times, but it was always just a dream. I didn't expect to get the chance today. Being reborn really is the best. I don't have to live in shame anymore. When I got home, the first thing I did was open my computer, log into the high school #1 forum, and find my post. I'm very sorry, but due to personal reasons, God tier dropout will have to go on hiatus. During the days since I was reborn, I'd use my free time on the school forum to post a novel. Posting it was honestly just a joke. At first, just to see if I had any talent for writing. Since I was leaving high school #1, there was no point in updating the forum anymore. I specifically went online to apologize to my readers. After seeing the hiatus, noticed the comment section blew up with fans asking, why are you stopping? And I hope you come back soon. I looked at those comments and suddenly smiled. It looked like I actually had some talent after all. In the blink of an eye, Monday arrived, and I successfully transferred from high school #1 to high school #2. Even though high school #3 had a teaching staff similar to high school #1. But the college acceptance rate was a bit low. At that moment, my dad was driving, and with a stone-cold face, he said, son, you're a real piece of work giving your grandfather such a scare. Luckily, the school I mentioned agreed to take you, otherwise I'd have broken your legs. In a flash, the car pulled up to the gates of school #2. Since my grades were actually decent, the transfer paperwork went through smoothly. I was even assigned to a class already. Class 12A was the top STEM honor class at school #2. The homeroom teacher, Luang Vu Dean, was an English teacher. The principal led me to class 12A. After Miss Luang gave a brief intro about my illustrious history, she turned to head out, so I made a small request. Miss, can I sit next to Wen Mangchi? At that, Miss Luang was taken aback. Do you two know each other? We're old classmates, so we're familiar. Miss Luang smiled and said, all right then. As we walked to the classroom door, we saw the math teacher inside having the students work on some problems. He gave a polite nod. Then he led me inside and told the students, let me introduce a new transfer student joining our class. After Miss Luang finished her piece, she asked me to introduce myself. Hi everyone, my name is Lin. My grades are pretty average, but I'm a man of character, never been in a fight. Hearing this, the homeroom teacher standing nearby almost burst out laughing. Then she announced from now on, Lin Yifei is part of our class and he'll be sitting next to Wen Mangchi. As soon as she said that, a girl wearing glasses looked up with a dazed expression and caught his eye. To be honest, it was his first time really seeing her. He noticed Wen Mangchi first and recognized her instantly. Wen Mangchi looked very shy and timid. In class, she was the quiet type, not exactly a social butterfly. She probably even got picked on by other kids. This kind of girl is usually invisible in class, rarely getting any attention. But after graduation, looking back, everyone realized they were wrong. Many former students, even her own classmates, were buzzing. It turned out that even after graduating from that school, rumors about her were everywhere. It was clear how famous Wen Mangchi actually was back then. He took the initiative to go over and move his desk. He settled his chair right next to Wen Mangchi and sat down. The math teacher handed him a worksheet while he was at it. You do this too. I'll go over it in class tomorrow. Yes, sir? No one expected that the moment the bell rang, the new kid would suddenly become like a zoo animal on display. It was like a circus. Even students from the next class over came running out. They crowded the hallway to watch the drama, pointing and whispering. Is that him? I just asked my cousin who goes here. Word is he got into a brawl with some athletes and even talked back to the teachers. Ended up getting kicked out. No, wait, I heard it was because he was chasing some girl. He fought someone over her, but she didn't even like him back. Haha, that's pathetic, so he's just a mindless simp. He never expected that even after switching schools. The reputation from that fight over Tran Tu Nuoc would follow him. He was still being labeled as a stupid simp. People began gossiping about the real reason behind his transfer. Rumors and tall tales started spreading like wildfire across the school. He felt like the whole world was turning its back on him. Only Wen Mangchi remained as calm and composed as ever. She didn't seem to care at all about what people were saying around her. Her silence was the only thing that made him feel at ease. The whispering and murmuring showed no signs of stopping. Even the teachers started looking at him differently. But he was determined to prove himself through his studies. He wasn't going to let these baseless rumors break him down. Time would provide the answers to everyone's doubts. He opened his book and started working on the problems the teacher had just assigned. Those mocking him would soon have to change their minds. Nguyen Kiet, the physics class rep, came over to say hello. Miss, he's the student who transferred because of a fight at his old school? Oh, and a pretty-looking girl walked up too. That was Tum Han Nguyen, and she looked at him with pure sarcasm. She opened her mouth and laughed, Nguyen Kiet. You have no idea this guy is a real celebrity, don't you know? He's none other than the legendary lovesick rich kid. I was chasing the prom queen of First High, and I even got into a fight with a jock over it. Word is that Jock was actually a teacher's son. That's why he got expelled. Oh right, I actually know Chen Siruo. I looked at my new friend in surprise. You know Chen Siruo? Yeah, she and I were elementary school classmates. I pouted and said getting expelled was bound to happen. I just transferred from First High and my cover was already blown before I could even get comfortable. Shen Xinyue blinked, then asked expectantly, do you want to try ditching Chen Siruo and go after me instead? The classmates nearby burst into laughter. Don't you already have Zheng Yansong Xinyue fired back with a laugh? I haven't said yes to Zheng Yansong yet, besides I'm into geniuses. This guy ranked in the top 10 as a freshman before transferring to our school. He's definitely top 3 material, plus I think he's pretty funny. He's clearly a genius, but in his intro he said his grades were just average. He obviously got kicked out for fighting, yet he says he never fights. Xinyue looked at me with anticipation. So what do you think? Or I could chase you, I feel like you're totally my type, and hey, I'm different from Chen Siruo. If someone fought for me, I'd be so touched I'd cry. I carefully sized up Shen Xinyue. Truth be told, for a high schooler, she really is a cutie. With a bit of makeup in college, she'd definitely be a class beauty. But right then, a voice suddenly cut in. He's nothing but a pathetic simp. She never even liked him. He fought for her and ended up getting expelled. How stupid is that Zheng Yansong glared at me. Then with a look that was pure warning, he added, don't even think about making a move on her. I just smiled and said nothing. Those words didn't bother me at all. He snorted and turned away. Seeing that Shen Xinyue pouted in disdain. Don't mind him, he's always like that. I nodded. Since I was new here, I didn't want to cause any trouble on my very first day. Class started and the teacher walked in looking stern. Everyone quickly settled down and the room went quiet. I stole a glance out the window. The sky was so blue today. A fresh start at this school, would it be as peaceful as I hoped? Whispers about me were still buzzing around the classroom, but I was already used to people pointing and staring. As long as I get my studies done, nothing else matters. Zheng Yansong kept glancing at me with pure annoyance. Then with that warning look again, consider this a warning. You better stay away from Shen Xinyue, just stay away. After saying that, he led a group of guys out, clutching a basketball. In my past life, I might have actually been intimidated by his cocky warning. After all, he had that typical bad boy vibe going on, looking like someone you shouldn't mess with. But seeing this kind of arrogant student now, it just feels hilarious. To be honest, those cool kids who act all high and mighty, in class after graduation, you'll realize they were never really a big deal. And the pretty girls, usually they end up divorced and raising kids alone, or they just marry some rich old guy. Thinking about this, I glanced over at the person next to me. Lost in her own world, head down, doing homework. It was Wen Mangchi. My silly little rich girl is still the best. Then I leaned forward, resting my chin on the desk to test her. What about you? Do you recognize me too? Mangchi froze for a second, then started shaking her head. That's good. Then let's start over. I'm Lin Yifei. Mangchi looked at this new student with a bit of worry, then glanced at Zheng Yansong, who had just left. Do you know how to fight me? No way. They're just talking trash. Then you better be careful. Why? Mangchi spoke up anxiously. Because Zheng Yansong might beat you up. I blanked for a moment. Zheng Yan. Song is the guy who just talked to me. Mangchi warned me very seriously. I'm for real because Zheng Yansong really likes Chen Siruo, I said casually. It's fine, it's not that deep. By the way, do you have a boyfriend? That sudden question left Mangchi stunned, her eyes going wide as she stared at this new student. Then she nodded, indicating she did. My eyes lit up immediately as I pressed for more. How about me? Do you want to be with me? Wen Mangchi was startled, and her face immediately turned beet red. Well, there's a question. I don't know. I have to go ask the teacher. Wen Mangchi grabbed a math test paper and bolted out of the classroom. Looking at Wen Mangchi's personality, she probably hadn't been confessed to by a boy before, let alone encountered someone as direct as me. She definitely didn't know why I felt this special sense of anticipation. Maybe life here would be very interesting. It wasn't until the bell rang that Wen Mangchi anxiously returned to class. She didn't even dare to look up, clearly still tense, shy and embarrassed by that confession earlier, having absolutely no idea how to handle it. Then the English teacher walked in, looking at me with a serious expression. As she looked up, she spoke. I just heard that some people were bad-mouthing our new classmate. I don't care how things were before, but now that you're in this class, you're a member of our group. I don't want to hear anyone gossiping behind a classmate's back. Alright, I'm passing out the papers. Today we're doing reading comprehension. I'll explain it once you're done. Obviously, the English teacher Liang Yuting had also heard some rumors about my transfer, so she specifically called out those people during class. While working, I realized one thing: my English level was completely superior to students my age. Even though I messed up the college entrance exam in my past life, after all, I had already passed the English level 6 exam in university. So whether it was vocabulary, grammar, structures, writing, or reading comprehension, I was much stronger than high school students. After finishing a reading passage, I only got one wrong. I did poorly in my previous life, scoring only 12 points in English. If I had done it, normally I could have scored around 125 points, but in this life, I feel I have a great chance of reaching over 140 points. After all, I have two innate advantages. First, when I was in university studying for my English certificates and higher exams, I memorized many words and worked hard. Second, I even know the exam questions in advance. The English teacher on the podium, Ms. Liang Yuting, suddenly spoke up. All right, everyone, check your answers. There are 25 questions in total. Raise your hand if you missed fewer than 5. Suddenly, many students raised their hands. I took a look around. There were 48 people in class, and 8 of them raised their hands. That means these people only missed 5 questions. It seems the level of the elite class really isn't much lower than the top school. Fewer than 4 mistakes! As soon as she said this, 3 people lowered their hands. Only 5 remained. They were the best English students in class. But to my surprise, the girl who had proactively talked to me earlier, Ms. Shen, it seemed her English performance was impressive. Fewer than 3 mistakes. Out of the 5 remaining, surprisingly, only 1 person kept their hand up. Ms. Liang Yuting, the English teacher, smiled and asked, "How many did you miss?" She nodded and laughed. Very good. This test was quite difficult. I took it from actual past papers, from previous college entrance exams. Finally, Ms. Liang Yuting suddenly looked at me and asked curiously, "Lin Yifei, I'm sure your English isn't bad. How many did you miss?" As soon as her voice faded, everyone looked at me. Every single person turned their eyes toward me, waiting for my answer. Thinking about how I just transferred, maybe it's better to keep a low profile for a bit, so I casually replied, "Yes, ma'am, I missed quite a few. I didn't perform very well." "That's all right. Your seatmate Wen Mangchi is very good at English." Ms. Liang Yuting finally looked at me curiously again and asked Lin Yifei, "I'm sure your English isn't bad. How many did you miss?" As her voice faded, everyone looked at me, every single one of them. They were all waiting for my answer, thinking that since I just transferred, maybe it's better to keep a low profile, so I casually replied, "Yes, ma'am, I missed quite a few. I didn't perform well." "No worries. Your seatmate Wen Mangchi, if there's anything you don't understand, you can ask her." My eyes lit up. That would be great. I have a lot of things I don't understand. Wen Mangchi suddenly got tense and said nervously, "Ma'am, I don't know how to tutor people. Clearly just now He's terrified. He doesn't even dare to look my way now." Chen Siruo gives the teacher a proactive smile. "I can do it, sir. I'm the English class rep, so I can tutor the new student." After saying that, Chen Siruo winks at me, flashing a smile that she clearly thinks is seductive. I just smile and say no thanks, but right then Trin Yen Tung, sitting there, says dismissively, "So that's all he's got? His score probably won't even hit 120. And here I thought students from School 1 were actually supposed to be smart. Chen Siruo gives Trin Yen-tung a frustrated glare. It's obvious he's intentionally targeting the new guy. It's the total score that matters, not just one subject. For all you know, he's a genius at literature. Aren't you a one-trick pony yourself? Anyway, School 1 is School 1 and School 2 is School 2. Our school is just as good as any other, so don't feel insecure. Speaking of which, I just remembered there's a competition next week. Each class has 3 spots. Anyone who wants to go sign up with me. This is a district-wide competition, so you'll need a vocabulary that goes way beyond high school level. It's all about general knowledge. If you place, you won't just get a certificate. There's prize money too. A good performance will bring honor to our school. Hearing this, I'm suddenly interested. I immediately raise my hand and shout, "Teach, I want to sign up." Trin Yen-tung mocks me. One class only has 3 spots. If you can't even beat our own classmates, how are you going to compete with the whole district? Giving you a spot would be totally unfair to the other students. At this point, I'll just chuckle and say, I get the feeling you're targeting me. I'm not targeting you, he snaps. I'm just saying with only 3 spots, we definitely have to be selective. Like the teacher said, it's about bringing honor to school too, so we have to choose the best of the best. All right then, Mr. Luong, the English teacher says with a smile. Let's do this. First, we'll see how many people sign up. If it's exactly 3, there's no need to compete. But if there are too many, we'll have a tryout. Let's leave it at that. Before leaving, Mr. Luong specifically comes over to ask me, let me see your test paper, since I'm a transfer student, mister. Luong probably isn't sure about my English level and wants to see how I did. He wants to know how to help me improve my score. I pause for a moment and reply, here it is. Man, this competition sounds intense. My homeroom teacher, Mr. Luong, takes a look at it right away. He starts flipping through the pages. Everything is actually correct except for one multiple choice question. I didn't say you made a lot of mistakes. Wait, how did you only get 1 question wrong? As soon as he says that, the whole class freezes and they all turn toward me at once with a look of total sincerity. I let out a heavy sigh and tell him getting even 1 question wrong is hard for me to accept. To me, that's a failure. Suddenly, the whole class erupts. Shen Tam Nguyen, the English rep, is so shocked she covers her mouth. That's incredible! As expected from a School 1 genius, Trin, Yen-tung's lip twitches. He glares at his own test paper and grinds his teeth. Unreal! What a poser! Mr. Luong, the English teacher, can't help but smile at me. This girl is a real treasure. You raised your hand. Why didn't you raise it sooner? Great job, keep it up. After seeing my paper, he's completely relieved. Originally, the school board said they were sending an elite student, but he was worried. He thought maybe my English was a bit weak and I was just stronger in other subjects. But now it seems my English is actually top tier. As I pack up my test paper, I hear a girl complaining behind me. Shen Tam Nguyen, that novel on the School 1 forum that you recommended last time, the author stopped updating it. The 2 girls look absolutely fuming. It stopped updating and they're pissed. Everyone immediately crowded around Chen Siruo to gossip. Even Wen Mangchi pulled out her phone and opened the forum to take a look. Scrolling through, sure enough, there was a notice saying updates were on hold. I asked curiously, you read this too? Wen Mangchi bit her lip and gave a cautious nod. Well, is it any good? Wen Mangchi nodded again. It's great, I immediately smiled with satisfaction. Honestly, I thought it was just okay. However, these words were overheard by Zhang Shiki, who was sitting in front of me. Zhang Shiki turned around to look at the transfer student from First High, the top student, and asked curiously, wait, aren't you from First High? Do you happen to know? Who wrote this novel? Surprised, I asked back. You know about it. 2. Does everyone read this? Wen Mangchi whispered. Mr. La recommended it. Mr. La, Zhang Shiki explained. That's our literature teacher, just a day or 2 ago. He mentioned during class that the First High forum had a really well-written novel. So everyone went to check it out, and it really is awesome. Your old school is seriously packed with talent. I can't believe someone actually wrote something like this. That's when it finally hit me. No wonder I was wondering why my novel had so many readers. It turns out the teacher had plugged it. I smiled, softly. It seemed like I should ask for his opinion during the next literature class. If everything looked good, I'd post it online and become a contracted author. Just then, Chen Siruo suddenly shouted, hey, new guy Lin Yifei, do you know the person who wrote that novel on the First High forum? Suddenly, everyone's eyes were fixed on me. They were clearly all very curious. Since I was a top 10 student, maybe I actually knew. Smirked and said, yeah, I know them. As soon as I said that, the whole class got excited. I feel like if this were turned into a TV show, it would definitely be a hit. I've never seen this kind of story before. The author is incredible, such a genius. I deliberately played it cool to build suspense and laughed. Actually, it's not that big of a deal, I'll ask him. When the next update is coming for you guys later, facing this group of fans for the first time, I truly felt the charm of being a novelist. I even stole a glance at my rich and ditzy deskmate next to me, only to find Wen Mangchi staring at me with the curiosity of a child. I'll tell you guys after I find out, I said, and they could only sigh and walk away. Still, things were going pretty well. Right then, the bell rang for class. This period was literature. Our teacher, Mr. Lewenchuan, walked into the room. Where's the new student? Right here. I immediately raised my hand. Mr. Law nodded. I've looked over your transcript from First High a few times. I get the impression that literature is your weak spot, right? You're right, sir. Honestly, literature is my worst subject. I mainly struggle with classical prose, and reading comprehension isn't my thing either. During the college entrance exams, out of all those subjects, my literature score was just average. I only got 114 points. Later, while he was lecturing, I turned to joke with my deskmate, Mengchi, your handwriting is really beautiful. It's elegant, neat, and has a certain grace just like you. You'd probably be stunning if you took off those glasses. Wen Mangchi bit her lip shyly. She had absolutely no experience with boys hitting on her. Since this was her first time, she had no clue how to handle it and could only keep her head down, pretending to listen to the lecture. Seeing that Wen Mangchi wasn't responding and was focused on studying, I didn't have the heart to keep bothering her, so I took out my phone and started writing my novel. Finally, the bell rang for the end of class. My literature teacher, Mr. Law, walked down and glared at me. Seeing me on my phone, his face instantly darkened with rage. You've been playing on that thing the whole period, he roared. Suddenly, everyone in class turned around watching the drama unfold like it was a show. Actually, the students sitting nearby saw everything. They already knew about the star student who had just transferred from First High to our class. He spent the whole time on his phone, so of course he got caught. I just nodded and told him straight up that I didn't like literature class. With a stone-cold face, Mr. Law snapped, "Get out!" Immediately, the whole room erupted into whispers and gossip. Out in the hallway, Mr. Law kept his cold expression. He stared at me and asked, "Why do you insist on playing on your phone? You know your literature grades are weak, don't you want to improve?" I smiled slightly and said, "Sir, honestly, I'm not actually weak in this subject. I did it on purpose because I wanted to ask you for a favor. Moving forward, would you let me write my stories during class?" Mr. Law frowned, looking confused. "What do you mean write stories instead of explaining? I just handed him my phone." He took the phone and glanced at it, but then he froze in total shock. Wait, this is the next chapter of the plot. That novel on the First High forum, I'm the one writing it. I was just finishing up the latest update for this chapter. Mr. Law was stunned, his mind racing. You wrote this?" He looked closer, confirming that the account really was the official author. This was the actual author of that novel. He couldn't believe it. "Did you really write this?" Mr. Law asked, taking a deep breath. Suddenly, his stern lecture face vanished, replaced by a wide grin. He looked at me with pure admiration and started showering me with praise. After all, he was a huge fan of the story himself. If he hadn't loved it, he wouldn't have recommended it to all his students in the first place. Mr. Law chuckled and said, "But I still can't just let you do whatever you want. Even if you are a great writer and your work is impressive, you still have to complete your schoolwork. Your college entrance exam scores are crucial for your own future." I nodded respectfully and said, "I understand, sir. I won't let you down." He smiled with satisfaction and said, "All right then, let's head back inside." I walked back into the classroom under the curious gazes of my classmates. None of them had a clue what had actually happened out in the hall. From that day on, I was given special permission to work on my writing during class. Mr. Law would even drop by occasionally to give me tips on the plot. It felt like my passion and my studies finally found a way to coexist. I was truly happy to have my teacher's support. My classmates were always puzzled by the special treatment I got, but this little secret stayed strictly between me and Mr. Law. Of course, the college entrance exam was still a big deal. Look, I explained I'm actually quite capable. I can guarantee a score of over 140 in literature on the final exam. Trust me, I'm not going to gamble with my future. Mr. Law frowned and muttered to himself, "Well, that's not impossible, I suppose. We have the 4-school joint exam this Friday. If you can take first place in the entire school, I might consider it." "First place overall or just in literature?" I asked. "In literature, obviously," he replied. "Didn't you just say you were confident you could get 140 on the finals?" "Forget 140. If you can even hit 135, that's close enough for me." Hearing that, I didn't even have to think twice before agreeing. "It's a deal then. If I get the highest literature score in the 4-school joint exam, then you'll let me write my novel in class." Mr. Law looked at me skeptically. Are you sure you can pull this off? I gave him a wide grin. I'm positive. You see, this joint exam was a big deal. It involved schools like Second High and the Normal University Experimental High. 4 major high schools were teaming up, all using the same test papers. These 4 schools had the highest college acceptance rates in the city. First High and Normal University High were the top dogs, while Second High was a bit behind. The Experimental High usually ranked last. Although these joint exam scores weren't the final word, the rankings were a huge indicator of how we'd perform on the real thing. Looking at the past years, the students who topped these joint exams were almost guaranteed a spot in the country's elite universities. Finally, Mr. Law asked out of curiosity, "This novel of yours is really well written. You should think about signing up. You know, there's a new concept writing competition coming up." My eyes lit up. You mean the national one organized by the Literary Youth Group? Exactly, Mr. Law nodded. That's the one. Do you want to give it a shot? I heard some people from First High are entering too. Want to try? I heard First High is also... Some students already signed up and are even getting one-on-one coaching. Last week, our school leadership had a meeting and mentioned it briefly. At first, we weren't planning to do it because the national competition is just too tough. Our school doesn't have a chance, but I think you should give it a shot. I smirked a bit and asked, will this help our school compete against the elite schools in the province, Mr. Law? Mr. Law was a bit surprised. He didn't expect this kid to understand how things work. It'll definitely help. If we get a good result, the reputation of Third High will definitely skyrocket. All right, sign up, Mr. Law laughed. Then I'll be waiting for your results from the inter-school exams. Oh, by the way, when's your novel? Getting an update tomorrow, sir. I should be able to post a new chapter by tomorrow. After getting back to class for a bit, I was swamped by my curious classmates. So what happened? Did Mr. Law say anything to you? Just then, before I even had a chance to sit down, Mr. Law suddenly walked back into the classroom. There was one more thing I forgot to mention. For the 6th inter-school exam, there's a new rule. Instead of taking exams in your own classroom, everyone will be randomly assigned to a different class. Lam Jat Fi, you okay with that? Several people looked at me in surprise, not catching the subtext of the question. I just nodded and smiled. I got it, sir. As soon as he left, Jiang Thi, who sits in front of me, turned around and asked, "What was that about? Why did he ask if you had a problem?" I shrugged and laughed. It's nothing. I just told the teacher not to bother me during class, so he told me that in the upcoming exams I have to rank first in the whole school for literature, and well, I agreed. Jiang Thi's eyes went wide with excitement. Oh my God, first in the whole school, are you serious? Even Wen Mangchi was stunned, staring blankly at her seatmate. Just a moment ago, he asked her to tutor him, and now suddenly he's aiming for the top spot. I laughed and said, just kidding, just kidding. I mean, I said it, but who knows if I can actually pull it off. Suddenly, I realized I was starving, so I stopped thinking about it. Why haven't you guys gone to get lunch yet? Jiang Thi smirked. She's waiting for you. You know, I told her she didn't have to wait for you to get back, but she insisted. I teased Mangchi on purpose. You're so good to me. Wen Mangchi's ears turned bright red. She didn't say a word, just lowered her head and grabbed her lunchbox from the desk. Afternoon classes were just an endless mountain of homework. Suddenly, my phone pinged, a message from Payback. Oh my God, dude. You made it all the way to class 4 at Second High. I froze for a second. I didn't expect Payback to recognize me at Second High through a photo, and that photo was even posted online. On the forums, everyone's asking why you transferred. Chen Siruo is also in that class. I already knew. Shen Yu told me. It seems the novel you're writing on the forum has already gone viral. At first I thought I was seeing things only 4 chapters in, and it's already popular. Today my class was asking why it hasn't been updated. How would they know it's me? They don't. They're just wondering why the author stopped. But Chen Siruo probably knows it's you. Plus, just now the homeroom teacher even asked if anyone knew who wrote that novel on the First High forum. Apparently, provincial leaders came for an inspection today and happened to see it, and they were full of praise. The principal said he wants to collect it for the school library as a keepsake. Should I tell the teacher that you wrote it? Even though the author's identity on the forum isn't clear, Chen Siruo actually went to the teacher's office on her own to tell our homeroom teacher, Mr. Song Wanbo, that she knows exactly who the author is. Mr. Tong, the homeroom teacher, let out a smile and said, "You're just in time. I was actually just talking about that novel. It's on our school forum, so one of our students definitely wrote it. Some officials from the Department of Education visited recently, and they absolutely loved it. Now the principal wants to take this chance to start a literature club. He wants that student to lead it and share their writing experience, so it was someone from our class, right? Tran Tunyuk hesitated for a moment before nodding. Mr. Tong smiled at her and leaned in. So who wrote it? Tunyuk stayed silent. She was actually torn about whether she should even say his name. After all, he had already dropped out. Suddenly, Vice Principal Kwach Hai-ba called the office to check in. Who wrote that novel? Mr. Tong answered immediately. Yes, sir, it was definitely one of my students. But as soon as he hung up, it hit him Tunyuk still hadn't told him who the author was. He turned back to her, full of anticipation. Right, you haven't told me the name yet. Who is it? Tunyuk looked incredibly awkward and hesitant. She lowered her voice and pleaded, Sir, can we just let it go? Mr. Tong laughed. Let it go? Why was it you? Tunyuk panicked and waved her hands. No, it wasn't me. Then just tell me? What's there to be afraid of? Mr. Tong chuckled. The school isn't going to punish them, they want to reward them. Finally, Tunyuk felt forced. She softly whispered the name Lin Yifei. Mr. Tong froze. He looked at her in total shock. You're saying Lin Yifei wrote that novel on the forum? Tunyuk kept her head down and replied, I'm pretty sure. I checked the account of the person who posted it, and the registered phone number is his. Mr. Tong was completely bewildered. His mind was racing. How could this be? That kid was terrible at literature and his essays were always just average. Did he have someone else write it for him? Or was there some kind of mistake? Mr. Tong kept muttering to himself in disbelief while Tunyuk remained silent, not saying another word. An eerie silence filled the office. Mr. Tong stared at his computer screen once again. The words on the forum were clear as day. Was that anonymous author really his most difficult student? Could he really have had some hidden talent all this time? Tunyuk said nervously. I don't know for sure, but the account is definitely Lin Yifei's. I double-checked and even found his old chat logs. Mr. Tong rubbed his head, feeling a massive headache coming on. Why didn't you say this sooner before Principal Kwach called me? Why didn't you tell me it was Lin Yifei? Now he stopped writing and I've already promised the higher-ups. Principal Kwach said we're lucky the Department of Education didn't ask for a meeting yet. What am I supposed to do now? Where do I find him? Tunyuk lowered her head sadly and apologized. Sir, I didn't know. I was just too scared to say anything. Since he already dropped out anyway. Mr. Tong was so pissed he actually started cursing. The worst part was that he had already bragged about it in the teacher's group chat saying it was his student. Isn't this just a total slap in the face? A kid who dropped out after a huge argument with him? He couldn't believe the person everyone wanted to praise was him. Mr. Tong gritted his teeth and said, Look, he stopped writing anyway, so just pretend you don't know who did it. I'll find some excuse for the school board. Remember, you absolutely cannot tell anyone it was Lin Yifei. Just say you don't know. Tunyuk looked like she wanted to say something else, but she held it back. Mr. Tong rubbed his temples in frustration, trying to keep his cool. Finally, he picked up his phone and called Vice Principal Kwach. Sir, I am so sorry. I just spoke with the student. It turns out they actually just found that story online and posted it. There's only that much content. There isn't any more. That's why the student was too scared to admit it was them. After hanging up, Mr. Tong felt a wave of relief. But just to be safe, he warned her again to keep her mouth shut. He couldn't risk anyone else finding out the truth. His entire career was on the line if this ever got out. Tunyuk felt incredibly conflicted and guilty. She didn't know if what she was doing was right or wrong anymore, but under her teacher's pressure, she felt like she had no choice. Meanwhile, Lin Yifei was just living his life. He had no idea his work had caused such a massive storm. Mr. Tong was still busy trying to cover everything up. After the call, Mr. Tong breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he had successfully fooled his superior for now. However, he was still constantly worried about the other students. He was terrified that someone else might know the truth. This is Song Wanbo. He's heading to the classroom to give everyone a heads up. Don't discuss this, he warns. Then Song Wanbo quickly reaches the classroom door and spots something. The English teacher is about to start the lesson. Song Wanbo, the homeroom teacher, gives a thin smile and says a few words about the novel on the school's bulletin board. Just drop it. If the principal says stop, then we stop. And as for all of you, don't worry about who wrote it. Even if you know, keep your mouth shut. From now on, don't talk about this anymore. Focus on your studies. The inter-school exams are coming up soon. I want everyone to try their best, but just as he's about to turn around and leave, a student suddenly screams out, Sir! Oh no, the novel just got an update. Right then, just 5 minutes ago, the homeroom teacher Song Wanbo felt his heart skip, a beat like a bolt of lightning out of the blue. He stands there dazed. An update. Is that for real? Immediately. Everyone in class whips out their phones and starts checking the content on the forum. Sure enough, on the God-tier university forum, the novel that had stopped for several days just posted a brand new chapter. Song Wanbo is completely paralyzed, his mind racing. He instinctively roars, "Get back to work! Who gave you permission to be on your phones? Hand them over after class." The students are all stunned, paralyzed with fear. It isn't until the teacher leaves that they finally breathe a sigh of relief and start whispering about why Mr. Tong suddenly snapped. Meanwhile, Sobok seems to have figured something out, a slight smirk playing on his lips. He sneaks a glance at Tran Tu Nuok and her expression is definitely off. Right away, he secretly sends me a text, filling me in on everything that just happened. Back in the office, Song Wanbo can't help but rub his temples. What do I do now? I just said the story was over. And then that bastard goes and updates it, but if I admit the novel was written by a student, then I'm basically admitting I just lied. If I don't, and the school board finds them, right? Then Song Wanbo immediately calls the director of education, Liu Vin. He tells the man, "On the other end, the novel on the forum, I'm the one who wrote it." Liu Vin can't help but snap back. He asks why he would just say that instead of calling it plagiarism. Now that it's updated again, how are you going to explain this? I'm not dealing with this, figure it out yourself. Song Wanbo grits his teeth and says, "How am I supposed to handle this then? I just mentioned your son getting into fights and team up with some girl to force Lin Yifei to drop out, didn't I?" The line goes silent. Suddenly, Liu Vin's voice turns cold. "So, what exactly do you want?" Song Wanbo frowns and says, "We go straight to the school and report it. We'll claim it's a distraction to their studies, and then we delete Lin Yifei's account or ban her from posting." Meanwhile, over at the middle school, others have noticed the update as well. Tons of people immediately jump on their phones to check it out. Just then the physics rep, Veon Kiet, runs over to me and asks, "Hey, don't you know that author? Tell him to update on time. His writing is seriously amazing." But then Wen Mangchi suddenly cries out, "It's gone! Was the post deleted?" Immediately everyone is confused. They were just reading it and now it's gone. I narrow, my eyes feeling like something is wrong. I check the post on my own account and see it's really gone. I can't help but scoff. Impressive. Really impressive. They're trying to scrub every trace of it. Jang Thi-ki looks at me puzzled. I was just about to say something when I see the math teacher standing at the classroom door. He took the chance to send a message to To back, only to find that he had already sent one first. "Your post was deleted. I have a feeling the homeroom teacher was behind it. It definitely felt like something a teacher would do." He mentioned that the 4-school joint exam is happening this Friday. You all probably know by now, but this time it's an interdepartmental exchange. You need to take this seriously. Next, I'm handing out 2 sets of math problems. These are from the joint exams held over the last few years. I've copied 3 sections and I wrote the rest of the questions myself. Class rep come up and hand these out to everyone. Just then, the literature teacher, La Von Hyen, suddenly appeared at the door. He knocked and said with a smile, "Mr. Lam Yifei, could you step outside for a moment?" Everyone looked at me sitting in the back with curious eyes. I made my way out to the hallway. Once there, Mr. La Von Hyen asked in a low voice, "Why was your story deleted?" I shrugged and smiled. "I'm not sure myself. Did anyone notify you? I just heard from the teachers over at First High. Even the officials from the education department were praising your novel. So why was it suddenly taken down?" My eyes suddenly lit up. I finally understood. Since I left that school, they deleted it so it wouldn't keep spreading. It wouldn't look good. Mr. La Von Hyen realized the reason and smiled. "That makes sense. Why don't you just post your updates on our Second High forum instead? You're at Second High now, so nobody's gonna delete your work. Plus, if you win that new creative writing competition, who knows, your novel might even get published." After that, I headed back to class. Not long after, the math teacher said, "5-minute break, everyone, then we'll continue." But just as I stood up to head to the restroom, Tom Nguyen suddenly ran over to me with a wide grin. "I know a secret," she chirped. Then she leaned into my ear and whispered, "Your novel is actually really famous." I stared at my classmate in shock. I never expected her secret to be about me. Her eyes were sparkling with pure mischief. I just rubbed the back of my head, feeling awkward and not knowing what to say. A little secret revealed during recess, Tom Nguyen gave me a wink and quickly ran off. I muttered to myself, "At least someone finally recognizes my writing." "You're the one who wrote it, right?" asked her softly. "Did Tran Tu Nuok tell you?" Tom Nguyen gave a smug little laugh. I'm not telling. I leaned toward the girl's ear and whispered back, I'll tell you a secret too. I'm about to start posting new chapters on the second high forum. As soon as the words left my mouth, she started cheering and clapping. But right then, I noticed the pen on my desk and the notebook I'd just borrowed from Wen Mangchi were both gone. Surprised, I asked. Wen Mangchi, did you take your pen and notebook back? Seeing that she didn't say a word, I reached out to take them myself. But she blocked me. No go borrow some from Tam Tam Nuit. I let out a little chuckle and looked at my wealthy little seatmate Wen Mangchi. Her face was practically glowing with jealousy. Are you sulking? I teased. She huffed and said, I thought you weren't that close to her, so why were you whispering? I have to say, seeing my little rich girl Wen Mangchi getting jealous like this was honestly the cutest thing ever. Seeing that she was still upset, I thought for a moment and then just opened my phone and showed her my account. She took one look and immediately covered her mouth in shock. I let out a soft laugh, covered her mouth with my hand and whispered, do you get it now? Then I told her everything, how Tam Tam Nuit found out I was the author, and the whole story about the school and why I got into a fight with the education director's son. On Wednesday during PE, the teacher made everyone run 1,500 meters. Watching the way Wen Mangchi ran, I finally realized why no guys ever hit on her or why she didn't have many close friends. She'd probably been teased a lot, which turned her into such an introvert. But at that moment, I suddenly felt like I'd discovered a hidden treasure. Most of all, I wondered if this silly little rich girl knew how much she mattered. If no one else treasures you, then from now on, I will. Right after that, I ran alongside Wen Mangchi, right there on the track. As expected, she looked so insecure, keeping her head down. She ran without saying a word. I stayed by her side and asked what she wanted to drink so I could go buy it. Honestly, she shouldn't let those mocking comments get to her. Wen Mangchi finally looked up cautiously, but I could still see the fear and self-doubt in her eyes. As she kept running, she shyly whispered to me, Are you not gonna laugh at me? In a flash, everyone had finished their laps. I was resting right there with Wen Mangchi and Jiang Shiki. I gave a small smile and asked, are you guys playing badminton? They both shook their heads and whispered, we're fine just sitting here for a bit. But while the three of us were resting, everyone else was staring at me in shock. It was clear that both Wen Mangchi and Jiang Shiki had been unfairly labeled. They weren't ugly by any means. They just lacked that typical girlish charm. Right then, Chen Siruo suddenly smiled and said, why don't you invite them over to play? She then asked Wen Mangchi and Jiang Shiki to join them for some shuttlecock. I took that opportunity to post the novel I'd been writing on the 12+ forum and even managed to update it with a new chapter. Once I finished, I suddenly looked up and saw Wen Mangchi and Jiang Shiki looking miserable, turning away to head back toward the school. Wen Mangchi was even wiping away tears as she walked, so I chased after them to find out what was wrong. But Wen Mangchi just looked at me with a flushed, humiliated face and ran straight toward the school building without a word. Jiang Shiki also bit her lip awkwardly finally, shouting something back at me. Hearing those words left me stunned, so I rushed to pull Jiang Shiki aside. Tell me exactly what's going on. She sighed, looking over at the group of girls playing shuttlecock. They saw you buying us drinks earlier. They were already talking about it. I just mentioned that the drink wasn't for me, but for Wen Mangchi, and then they started teasing us saying, wow, he's actually going after Wen Mangchi. He really has terrible taste, doesn't he? They said it's like a flower stuck in cow dung. My lip twitched in disbelief as I asked, who said that? Who said anything about a flower in cow dung? Are they calling me the cow dung? Jiang Shiki bit her lip and whispered, you're the flower. I couldn't help but let out a frustrated laugh. Just tell me who. Tu Qidan said it and Shen Tam Yu too, she replied. They said they didn't think Lin Yifei had such good eyes. Then Tu Qidan said, a flower stuck in cow dung. Fine, you head up first, I told her. I'm going to find Tu Qidan and make her apologize. I walked straight toward the girls. Seeing me approach, Shen Tam Yu and the others seemed to realize what was happening. Shen Tam Yu gave a forced, awkward smile. Sorry, I think we might have made Wen Mangchi cry. I took a deep breath, my expression turning cold as I spoke. Apologize. Since I doubt you can do it to her face, you and Tu Qidan are going to write her a formal apology. Shen Tam Yu froze. I have to write one too. She looked at me with the jealous pout. I'm not doing it. Why should I? I glared at her and barked. I said, apologize. Do you really want to see me get nasty? Shen Tam Yu jumped, her whole body stiffening. Even the girls playing further away stared in pure shock. No one expected me to blow up like that. Shen Tam Yu's eyes welled up with tears. She slumped to the ground, sobbing and wiping her face. This scene caused a stir among the boys. Seeing this, Zheng Yanfeng rushed over. What's wrong? You're crying, did he bully you? Shen Tamyu just shook her head while sobbing. Dao stood up and ignored An, giving me one last glare before walking away. Trin Ian Sung's lip twitched as my sister screamed, "Don't you dare come home after school that afternoon." The classroom vibe felt super weird with everyone whispering behind my back, especially during the last study hall. Jiang Thi Qi passed a note to An Mangchi that said I heard Lam Yifei made Tam Tam Nguit cry. I heard Lam Yifei made Tom Tam Nguit cry. Seeing those words on Mangchi got all tense. She bit. Her lip looked at me and whispered, "On, look at this." Her eyes were full of worry. She kept biting her lip and whispered, "I'm so sorry, maybe we should just tell the teacher." I frowned and replied, "No way. If we tell the teacher, it'll just drag her into this mess. I don't want her getting involved." I could already imagine what would happen if the teacher called Tum Tin Nguit on Mangchi and Trin Ngan Tung into the office, even if it solved things. The rumors among the other students would just blow way out of proportion. After all, I'd already been through this once in high school in my past life. Rumors really can destroy someone's fragile mental state, especially someone like An Mangchi who's already pretty insecure. There was no way I was going to throw her into the line of fire. An Mangchi looked at me, her eyes filled with fear and hurt. Finally, she scribbled something on a piece of paper and pushed it over. "Let me go apologize to him." I glanced at her and wrote back, "Don't you dare go. I've got a plan. To be honest, when dealing with these off-campus fights, the simplest and most direct way is to let them know you're stronger so they back off." I smirked and passed the note back. "Got any cash? Let me borrow some." To my total surprise, 2 minutes later, I got a transfer from her. I stared at the amount in shock. 100,000? No, wait, it was a total of 286,751. I was completely floored. Turns out she's a total little rich girl. How does a senior have that much money? "Is that enough? If not, I can ask my mom for more," she said. I couldn't help but hold my head and laugh. This was perfect. After that, I checked my friend list for a backup plan, but realized it was better to just go straight to two-back. Someone's trying to jump me after school. Tell my cousin. A little while later, the final bell rang. At that moment, quite a few people instinctively turned around to look at me in the back. Even the English class rep Tom Tom Nguit couldn't help but walk over. With a look of conflict on her face, she pulled me to the back of the room and whispered, "Maybe you shouldn't go out. Sister Yen Song has people waiting for you outside." Tom Tom Nguit shook her head in worry. "I'm sorry I tried to talk to him, but he's determined to cause trouble for you. If you can't handle it, just go apologize. Someone's already been beaten up because of this before." I just smiled and asked, "Why are you so worried about me? Aren't you a boarding student? Just remember to apologize to An Mangchi during evening study hall." With that, I casually strolled out of the classroom. Seeing she couldn't convince me, Tom Tom Nguit turned to An Mangchi and begged, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know it would turn out like this. Maybe you should tell him not to go out to the school gate yet, otherwise he's really going to get hurt." Tom Tam Nguit crouched by An Mangchi's desk, terrified, pleading for help. An Mangchi just shook her head and said seriously, "I trust him." Tham Tam Nguit was practically crying from frustration. "It's not about trust. There's no way Lam Yifei can fight all those guys." Sister Yen Song called a ton of people. "I admit I shouldn't have said those things about you. Look, I'm just a little jealous, but I really don't want to see Lam Yifei get beaten up by them. Aren't you too close? You should talk some sense into him." Wen Mangchi hesitated for a second, then finally shook her head and whispered, "Actually, he's already called for backup." Once the words were out, Shen Xinye got even more anxious, holding her head and mumbling, "Then what are we supposed to do?" She gritted her teeth, ready to head to the teacher's office to report it, but Wen Mangchi mustered up all her courage and said, "We can't." He said, "We can't tell the teachers right now." The wealthy young lady Wen Mangchi's eyes suddenly turned dead serious. If this had happened before, he wouldn't have known how to handle it, but right now, she felt she should trust him. If they told the teachers now, all his previous preparations would go to waste. Shen Xinye explained frantically, "Are you crazy? If this turns into a huge scene, Diep Tung might end up getting expelled." Wen Mangchi took a deep breath and said calmly, "That's exactly why we have to trust him and not tell the teachers." Shen Xinye's mouth hung open, looking at Wen Mangchi in total disbelief. In that moment, it felt like a dream. Meanwhile, at the school gate on the main road, some classmates nearby were whispering to each other, "Aren't you scared to go out there? I remember those guys usually hang out with Diep Yen Tung." I suddenly laughed. Where is he? No idea. I think he went to the office to ask the teachers some questions, I said, slightly surprised. Creating an alibi, Lu Ziyang doubled over laughing. You're pretty sharp, haha. Spoken like a true top student, but seriously, if you just bow your head and apologize, it'll be fine. We're all classmates, no need to be so intense. How about I put in a good word with Diep Yen Tung for you? I kept one hand in my pocket and said nothing, just heading straight for the school gate. Before long, the gate was in sight. Looking back toward the tree-lined road, several electric scooters were parked with 7 or 8 guys who looked like thugs sitting there smoking. Liu Ziyang patted my shoulder and chuckled. I'm out of here, bye-bye, good luck. Sure enough, as soon as he left, those punks, who were smoking, turned their gaze toward me. The thugs looked at each other and smirked, then a blonde-haired guy among them stepped toward me to start trouble. The students leaving school nearby were all startled, keeping their distance from me. Smoking, the blonde guy threw an arm around my shoulder and said, You're that transfer student from class 12-4, right? I raised an eyebrow slightly and sized them up, realizing they were just some dropouts from the local tech school not much older than me, riding beat-up electric scooters and picking up girls at the gate. I couldn't help but laugh. I smiled and said, Yeah, did Yen Tung call you guys here? The blonde guy blew out some smoke, shook his head and laughed. Come over here, we've got something to discuss. Honestly, if a regular high school kid ran into this, they'd be terrified. Especially with these guys' dyed hair tattoos and smoking. 2 of them were even holding water pipes and iron bars, which was pretty intimidating. But for someone like me who's been reincarnated, it was actually kind of funny. So I chuckled and asked, Is this all of you? I thought there'd be more. The blonde guy sneered. Wei Dai Zhuang said we didn't need many. The punks next to him jeered, Who do you think you are? Quit acting tough, aren't the few of us enough? Just as he finished, Subei's cousin from the train station muttered, Is that the place? Let's go. At that moment, a whole group of street guys from the station started swarming in. A massive crowd headed straight toward me and those punks. Even the parents waiting for their kids were stunned by the sight, frozen in place. They quickly pulled their children behind them for protection. Even the school guards were trembling with fear, frantically pulling out their phones to call the school board. Suddenly, the crew that Qin Feng called in showed up and everyone was speechless. Hey, Big Brother 6, is this really it? I mean, it's just a few kids. Did you really need all of us? To come out, I thought something major was going down. Turns out, it's just some punks loitering at the gate. Big Brother 6 looked at my photo and immediately let out a laugh. You're Deep Fi, right? This is all there is. I had seen a photo of his cousin Toback earlier, so I replied, I didn't expect this either. I figured there'd be at least 15 or 20 of them. The guy who wanted to jump me went to pick a fight with a teacher and isn't even here. You guys handle it after all. Both sides are outsiders. If anyone asks, just say you were passing by. Big Brother 6 smirked and said, Kid, just go home. Immediately, they surrounded those young punks. Who told you kids to come here? Move it, don't block the gate, let's go talk over there. Then dozens of men grabbed those little punks and dragged them aside for a lesson. Right then, the school's director Liu Bin came, rushing out to the gate only to find everyone was gone. Wait, what? Didn't they say there was a fight at the gate? The guard swallowed hard and stammered. It looked like a student was being dragged away, but then, just as I was about to check, a massive crowd showed up and hauled those delinquent-looking guys off to the left. Director Liu Bin took a sharp breath. He asked, Was any student from our school hurt? The guard shook his head. I don't think so. That student seemed to have left already. Hearing this, Director Liu Bin finally breathed a sigh of relief. He immediately sent a message to the faculty group chat. The alert went out to every homeroom teacher at high school number 2 outsiders gathered for a fight at the gate. Check if anyone in your class knows about this or got hurt. Report back immediately. Right away, all the teachers started messaging their students privately to get the scoop. That night during study hall, class 12-4 was buzzing with the news. Someone had been hiding near the gate and caught the whole thing on camera. There was a photo of me being grabbed by that blonde punk. Then a group of adults suddenly swarmed in and scared the living daylights out of those thugs. That was freaking legendary. I seriously thought Lamdat was done for. But man, he called in dozens of guys. And they were all adults, looked like real professionals too. The students were all hyped up talking about it. They suddenly felt a newfound respect for Lamdat. Everyone used to think Trin Yen Tung was the man. After all, back in 11th grade, he fought some guys from another class at the gate. But who would have thought the transfer student from high school number 1 would be on a whole different level? Tom Yuok sighed, scribbled a note, and tossed it to Trin Yen Tung. After reading it, Trin Yen Tung was so pissed he slammed his book down. Later that night during study hall, he was summoned to the teacher's office and forced to stand there and write an apology letter. Meanwhile, back in the study hall, someone suddenly shouted, "Guys, check this out! Look at this! That novel, written by the guy who got kicked out of high school number 1. It's been posted on our school forum. It's all over high school number 2 now." Everyone started gossiping like crazy. That novel by the transfer student was officially up on the school's site. The whole thing was trending at high school number 2. Wait, I recognize this ID. The author said they transferred from first high to second high. So the news spread through second high instantly. All the girls are totally buzzing about it. Zhang Thiqi's eyes widened in total shock. She turned around to Wen Mangchi, who was sitting behind her, and whispered, "The author of that web novel mentioned transferring schools." Then she couldn't help but glance over at the seat next to her. Wen Mangchi's seat was empty. She'd figured she'd be the one most surprised by all this. But to her surprise, Wen Mangchi just nodded. Thikai was absolutely floored when she realized the truth. It really is Lin Yifei. As soon as those words left her mouth, everyone in the room instinctively turned to look. The whole class erupted into whispers, like, did Lin Yifei seriously write that? Oh my god, I thought it was just a classmate, but wait, he's the only one who transferred from the other school. Chen Siruo smirked and said, "Then it's gotta be him!" She and Wen Mangchi shared a knowing look. They seemed to be checking something, but right then, Xu Jiaying suddenly rushed over. He stood by Shen Yue and whispered, "What do we do now? Should we go apologize? Even if Zhao Zhu can't do anything, what if Lin Yifei gets someone to jump us?" Shen Shi let out a heavy sigh. "But you still need to apologize. Go write a letter, at least a few hundred words." He ripped out a piece of paper and started drafting it. After the first session of night study ended, Zhu Jiaying nervously walked up to Wen Mangchi. He stammered out, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked trash about you today." With that, he handed over the apology letter. Shen Shi also looked at him in the eye and said, "I'm sorry too, but I've already made up my mind." Hearing this, Zhu Jiaying was stunned. Wen Mangchi was just as confused. She looked up at her and Shen Shi mustered up a brave smile. She told him it's all in the past now. We should just start over. He looked at her completely caught off guard. Shen Shi smiled confidently and said, "Let's have a fair competition and see who can actually win Lin Yifei's heart." Zhang Thiqi's jaw literally hit the floor. She just stared there paralyzed. Wen Mangchi was speechless. She never even imagined a guy like him would ever be into her. Suddenly I felt like I was on a spaceship, totally dizzy. My head was spinning. The next day I headed back to school. As I walked through the campus, I was the center of attention. Students were whispering and glancing my way, but nobody had the guts to actually say hi. When I got to the cafeteria, that's when I ran into my classmate Lu Ziyang. He gulped hard and blurted out, "Hey man!" He started apologizing to me saying, "Look, I don't really know Zheng Yan song that well. Honestly, I tried to talk him out of it yesterday, but he wouldn't listen." Liu Ziyang, I'd heard it all before. Yesterday, the guys Zheng Yan song brought didn't teach me a lesson. Instead, they got schooled themselves. I just laughed and told him, "That's not what you said yesterday." But then he kept following me around, constantly praising the novel I wrote. He was like, "It's so good. Is there someone on that ship or is it some dark monster?" I thought to myself, this guy's a piece of work. What kind of interdimensional entities are these? I couldn't even be bothered to answer him. Heading back to class, I was immediately swarmed by my classmates. I finally caved and said, "Fine, you caught me. I wrote the novel." I said it with a laugh and went back to my desk. As soon as I sat down, I noticed something on my table. There was a box of fried noodles and a bottle of fresh milk. I tapped Zhang Thiqi on the shoulder. "Who left this here?" She glanced over at an empty seat. "Someone probably bought this for you." Right then, Wen Mangchi walked back into class carrying a breakfast bag and a few books. As soon as she sat down, I handed the fried noodles and fresh milk to her, then swapped them for the noodles the other guy had bought. I smiled and said, "Let's trade. I want this one." Wen Mangchi frowned and asked why. With a dead serious look, I explained, "I want to eat yours. It smells way better." Wen Mangchi was stunned for a moment. Even though she didn't get why the ones I bought supposedly smelled worse, she just let out a quiet "oh." Since they were both just fried noodles, it didn't really matter. There's milk too, take a sip. Then I personally fed the milk to her. She gave me a really weird look. And suddenly, it clicked. She opened her mouth and said, "You just don't want to pay me back, do you?" After thinking it over, she reached the conclusion that her seatmate was trying to swallow her whole fortune. Why else would he be so attentive for no reason so early in the morning? I let out a chuckle and finally said, "Classmate Wen, do I really look like that kind of guy? I admit I'm no saint, but I'd never scam you, just relax. I'll pay you back, but not right now," Wen Mangchi said with a pout. That was all my New Year's money, even this month's living expenses were in there. How about this? For the time being, I'll cover all your food and expenses, okay? And when the time comes, I'll pay you back everything with interest. Wen Mangchi frowned and whispered, "Is this a scam? How about this from now on? You use my card on the app. I'll set up a dependent card for you with some pocket money. Is 3,000 a month enough?" Wen Mangchi shook her head. "That's too much. 600 is plenty." I rolled my eyes and said, "No way. You have to spend at least 1,000 a month. If you don't spend it all, you fail. Girls need to learn how to spend money. Classmate Wen, you're way too thrifty." After saying that, I added a dependent card to Wen Mangchi's green bubble account and set the limit to 1,000 a month. Oh, Wen Mangchi stood there dazed, just letting out an "oh." Honestly, this wealthy little girl really cracked me up. Just then, our homeroom teacher, Mr. Liang, Yuting called me and Zheng Yansong outside. The other students all used the corners of their eyes to sneak a peek at the hallway behind the classroom door. At that moment, Mr. Liang's face was stone cold. "You both know why I called you out. Here, right? I practically begged, sir. I really wasn't. Fighting yesterday was my cousin's birthday. If you don't believe me, ask Zheng Yansong. Zheng Yansong is my best bro. Why would we ever fight?" Zheng Yansong's eyes widened and he just stood there stunned. Best bros, Mr. Liang? Glanced at Zheng Yansong and asked, "Well, what do you have to say?" Zheng Yansong's mouth hung open, and after a long silence, he finally managed to squeeze out one word, "Yes." Mr. Liang laughed in frustration and said, "Oh, so you're best bros, are you? Fine then, should I arrange for you two to sit right next to each other?" Before he could even finish, we both shouted at the same time, "No, no!" Mr. Liang crossed his arms and said hopelessly, "Wait! Aren't you guys best friends?" "Why don't you want to?" Now I smiled and said, "Mostly because we're afraid it'll mess up our grades. If we sit together, we'll definitely talk too much." Mr. Liang looked at me and saw that I didn't look like I'd been hit. As for Zheng Yansong, it goes without saying. Word was he stayed late with the math teacher yesterday to finish a test, so he definitely wasn't fighting. Fine, I won't notify your parents for now, but Lin Yifei and Zheng Yansong, if I hear about any more conflict between you two, or especially if you bring in people from outside the school, then don't bother explaining it to me. Go straight to the office and deal with the administration. Do you boys understand? I just grinned and replied, "Got it, teach." Oh, and that English speech contest the teachers mentioned. The other day I want in. Ms. Luong Vu Din let out a heavy sigh, then waved Trin Nam Tung away, saying, "Just go back to class for now." Afterwards, she pulled me aside and asked, "Tell me the truth, is Nyam Tung usually targeting you? Is he pressuring you not to tell the teachers?" I then spun a tale about what happened at the gate, making it sound like some midnight assassin thriller. After hearing it, Miss Luong was completely baffled, and he calls you his brother. Before heading back, I even coached her on how to report it to the board. Just say they came to celebrate my brother's birthday and happened to stop by the gate. Ms. Luong immediately burst out laughing at my nonsense. Then I added, "Come on, teach." She couldn't handle my smooth-talking antics. She playfully kicked at me, laughing. Fine, fine, just get back to class." That day, my sweet-talking clearly worked. She was satisfied and stopped digging into the trouble between us. A moment later, Ms. Luong stood at the podium and announced, "The inter-school exams are tomorrow, so I'll be handing out the admission slips this afternoon. Keep them safe." As for the speech contest, only 3 people signed up, so there's no need for tryouts. Lam Ngefi Tam Tam Nuit U3 can start preparing. Also, regarding the New Year's talent show, every class needs at least 2 performances. If you've got an act, sign up with the arts rep during the break. Right then, the School 1 forum was buzzing. Rumor had it a new short story just dropped on School 1 and was being mirrored on School 2. They said a transfer student wrote it. I asked around on the School 2 board and they said it was likely a 12th grade transfer student. The only one fitting the bill was Lin Yifei, right? Suddenly, the chatter died down completely because Vice Principal Quach Hai Bok was standing at the back door listening in. Seeing everyone discussing it, he frowned and asked, "Who's the one posting that web novel on the school boards?" Everyone in the School 2 class froze. He looked at me, his face cold, and barked, "Where's the class president?" Right. Then Tran Trikiet stood up. With a bitter smile, he said, "Sir, I have no clue. I don't even know who wrote it." Vice Principal Quach retorted in disbelief. "You don't know? Then why did I hear it was someone from your class?" As soon as he said that, the room erupted. Was this some kind of ghost story? Class Pres Trikiet scratched his head and said, "Sir, that story was updated on School 2, but they said it came from School 1. If it's our class, it's gotta be Lamb." Yifei. Vice Principal Quach was stunned for a second. Their homeroom teacher already found the student and told them to stop, so it wouldn't tank their college entrance scores. Everyone shook their heads. Then I suddenly stood up and said, "Sir, it was Lin Yifei," because back then we heard the Board of Education leaders actually praise the story. I asked about it, but our teacher told us to just stay out of it. Well, that was it. Vice Principal Guo Haibo's face immediately darkened. With a cold expression, he said, "I get it. You all just get back to your morning reading." After saying that, he walked out of the classroom. The moment he left the 12th grade class at school number 2 immediately erupted in chatter. The crowd crowded around Su Bei. Did Lin Yifei really write it? At that moment, the homeroom teacher, Song Wanbo, was in the office organizing assignments when suddenly Vice Principal Guo Haibo walked in. All the teachers in the office looked up. Guo Haibo stood at the door in a terrible mood and said to the teacher of Class 2, "Step out here for a second." Then the two of them went to the office doorway for a private chat. "Did you say that novel is being updated on the School 2 forum?" Song Wanbo immediately started shaking, breaking out in a cold sweat. "I thought once I locked the account it wouldn't be updated anymore, but that kid just," Guo Haibo said with a stone-cold face. "Didn't you say at first that you were contacting the kid's parents? Now your students are saying it's written by a student who dropped out." Song Wanbo forced a laugh. "Well, actually, after that, Guo Haibo couldn't hold back and snapped at Song Wanbo. "Song Wanbo, don't think I don't know what's going on. You're doing this on purpose because you're too scared to admit you had a falling out with a student, so you're claiming an ex-student wrote it, right? Are you scared? Even if he wrote the novel, you should have just said so, but now you've put me in a real bind. How am I supposed to report this? I specifically told the school board that we were prioritizing studies, so the updates would stop for now. In a few days, the district officials will be visiting school number 2. Don't you realize what kind of critical time this is, school number 2? The experimental schools, all the top-tier schools are competing for the provincial key school spots. We absolutely cannot let the officials get a bad impression. Tell that student to delete the novel immediately or tell him to go back to the School 1 forum to keep updating." Song Wanbo's jaw dropped, completely stunned. Vice Principal Guo Haibo looked at him sternly and said, "I remember you. We're planning to apply for a senior teacher promotion this year, right? If this makes School 1 look like a joke, you should know just how serious the consequences will be. Hurry up while not many people know yet, and handle this properly. Either get it back on the School 1 forum or tell him to stop updating entirely. Otherwise, isn't it just embarrassing?" It would have been better to say someone outside school wrote it. Song Wanbo immediately gritted his teeth and said to Vice Principal Guo, "This is on me. Don't worry, I won't let the school lose face because of my mistake." Only then did Guo Haibo nod in satisfaction. He then clasped his hands behind his back, turned around and left. During the third period, Song Wanbo spoke to the class, saying, "Before we start today, I have something to discuss. Which one of you is close with Lin Yifei?" The students immediately started looking at each other, and finally, Su Bei raised his hand and smirked. "Sir, I guess I am." Someone else whispered Chen Siruo's name. Song Wanbo's eyes lit up, and he said, "Right, Chen Siruo. Aren't you close with Lin Yifei? Could you ask him for me? Is he really the one writing that novel? Why did he suddenly stop updating on the School 1 forum? Can you ask him to come back to the forum? Here, tell him not to post on other sites anymore." Song Wanbo looked at the students with hopeful, pleading eyes. The whole class started buzzing about the author's identity. Was Lin Yifei really the mastermind behind the story? Su Bei smiled knowingly, seeing how flustered the teacher was. Chen Siruo nodded slightly and said, "I'll try to reach out and ask." Song Wanbo let out a sigh of relief and then called the class to order. "All right, let's start today's lesson, everyone." However, everyone's mind was still on the story. Whispers continued to echo from the back of the room. Everyone was dying to get a real answer from Lin Yifei. Finally, the bell rang, signaling the end of the period. Chen Siruo hurried off to find Lin Yifei to keep her promise. Will he come back to the forum? He shouldn't write elsewhere. Going back to School 1, Chen Siruo hesitates before answering the teacher. "But sir, he's already studying at School 2. Isn't it perfectly normal for him to be at School 2? Why does he have to come back to School 1? Our homeroom teacher Tong Wenbo smiles and says, "You should try to convince him. Just tell him that all his classmates really like him. Aren't you guys friends?" Besides, it shouldn't matter where he does his writing, right? Meanwhile, I was in class focusing on my studies when I suddenly got a text from Su Bei. Ha ha ha, you've got to see this. The principal came by today asking about your novel. The homeroom teacher ended up telling Chen Siruo to find you and get you to start posting at school again. Hey buddy, since class is out, I jokingly replied that I had already blocked Chen Siruo. So seeing how Chen Siruo was hesitating, he was probably too embarrassed to admit that I'd deleted him. Ha 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 ha, this is gold. Sure enough, a friend request popped up just a moment later. Chen Siruo was asking to be my friend. I didn't even have to think about it, I just hit decline immediately. I even intentionally turned to the rich girl next to me, Wen Mangchi, and said with a smile, "Hey Wen, don't forget you're taking me to the movies this Saturday." Wen Mangchi looked all pouty and explained, I don't have any money left. I laughed until my stomach hurt. She's seriously so airheaded and cute. Fine, I'll treat you then. Wen Mangchi suddenly shook her head and said, "No wait, don't I have my family card? I'll treat you." Then she just stared blankly for a while, like her brain couldn't quite keep up. After about 10 or so minutes of studying, the wealthy Wen Mangchi suddenly started muttering to herself. Wait, that's not right. Using my family card doesn't count as me treating you unless I use my own money to buy the tickets. I slumped over my desk, laughing my head off. Rich girl Wen Mangchi is honestly way too adorable. Lin Yifei, what are you laughing at? The chemistry teacher at the podium finally lost his patience and tapped his ruler to get my attention. What's so funny that you can't stop? The whole class went silent. I quickly buried my face in my book, but I still couldn't stop laughing. It's nothing, sir, I just remembered we're in the middle of class. Suddenly I stood up and said with a grin, "Sir, I just thought of something really funny." By now, Wen Mangchi's face was beet red. She knew I was laughing at her. She suddenly ducked her head and chimed in, "Teacher, it's because I was working on a chemistry problem and saw the symbols BB-A and N-A. I was just wondering if I'd discovered a secret." As soon as she said that, the whole class burst out laughing. After that, the teacher scolded us about doing extra work during class time. He said we should pay attention to the lesson. Finally, it was time for lunch. As soon as class was over, Chen Siruo asked me, "Did you really decline his friend request?" I was stunned for a second before it clicked. "Wait, Chen Siruo reached out to you." Chen Siruo smiled and said, "You're being so cold. He said he was looking for you and asked me to have you add him." I replied coldly, "No need. Let's go Wen Mangchi. Let's go grab some lunch." Wen Mangchi, our little rich girl, followed right behind me. Chen Siruo was left there, completely stunned. It was the first time she'd ever been treated like that, just totally ignored. Tujai walked over from the side and said with a chuckle, "Let's go stop staring. Maybe that's just the kind of girl he likes." Meanwhile, I was standing in line at the cafeteria thinking about what to eat when I realized Wen Mangchi was staring at me with her big, watery eyes. "What's wrong? Nobody's picking on you." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry as I looked at Zhang Shiki next to her and asked why the sudden face. Zhang Shiki just shook her head. Suddenly, Wen Mangchi leaned in and asked in a worried whisper, "That girl, the one you used to like, was she really beautiful?" I let out a chuckle and said, "Oh, are you actually getting jealous?" Wen Mangchi bit her lip and didn't say a word, just looking at me with those hurt eyes. The three of us found a corner to eat and chat. "By the way, are you planning to join the talent show? Are you gonna sign up?" Mangchi looked at me, her eyes full of curiosity. I stayed quiet for a few seconds before giving her a smile. "Maybe I will, maybe I won't." Suddenly, Shiki leaned in and whispered, "Let me tell you a little secret. Mangchi actually took home first place in last year's talent show." Hearing that, I was genuinely surprised. Mangchi's face turned bright red as she shook her head, pleading with Shiki to stop talking. Shiki just laughed it off. "What are you afraid of? That's your secret weapon." And just like that, she spilled the beans. It turns out Mangchi was a piano prodigy. After hearing the story, we chatted for a bit longer. Regarding the talent show, I grinned and said, "All right, count me in." Meanwhile, Chen Siruo had made her way to the teacher's office. "Sir, I'm really sorry, but Lin Yifei actually deleted me from his friends list. I tried adding him back, but he won't accept. Maybe you should just try calling him yourself, Mr. Song." The homeroom teacher was stunned. "You guys are classmates. He'd much rather talk to you than me, right? Weren't you two pretty tight?" Siruo's face flushed as she mumbled softly, "Sir, that was a long time ago." Mr. Song tried his best to convince her. "Look, boys are actually pretty easy to win over. Just go to him and say some nice things. Give it a shot, okay? Maybe invite him out for a meal. I'll even cover the bill. After all, I'm partly to blame for Lin Yifei dropping out of school. I really didn't handle things well at first." Hearing this, Siruo felt a bit wronged and pushed back. "Then why won't you just call him yourself, sir? Wouldn't it be easier if you just spoke to him directly? Mr. Song went completely silent. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words just wouldn't come out. Suddenly, finding her courage, Siruo spoke up. Sir, is it because you don't want to swallow your pride? Mr. Song's expression instantly darkened. He snapped, "What kind of nonsense are you talking about? You can head back to class now." Without another word, Siruo quietly turned and walked away. She left the office with a heavy heart. In the hallway, other students were rushing past to get to their next period. Maybe this was the only way to get Lin Yifei to come back. The school bell started ringing, signaling the start of class. Hearing the teacher's dismissal, Siruo left immediately. Fine, go back to class, he'd said, but as soon as the student walked out of the office, Mr. Song immediately started to regret his outburst. He smacked his own head. Man, oh man, Mr. Song gritted his teeth and finally started searching for the student contact list on his computer. He stared at the string of numbers but just couldn't bring himself to hit dial. After hesitating, he called Su Bei, Lin Yifei's former desk mate, to his office. Standing straight in front of his teacher, Mr. Song forced a smile and said, "You were Lin Yifei's desk mate before, right? You guys must have been close. Do you think you could talk to him for me? Tell him not to post that novel on the school forum anymore. Also tell him to come back to school, or maybe wait until after the college entrance exams to write it." Mr. Song laughed awkwardly and added, "I'm mostly just worried it'll affect his grades." Su Bei knew exactly what was going on but decided to play dumb. He already transferred. Why are you still worried about how he's doing? But if he comes back to write, wouldn't that distract him from studying anyway? Mr. Song cleared his throat and kept smiling. Well, that's different. Look, can you just do me a favor and reach out to Lin Yifei for me? Su Bei bit her lip and said, "Sir, I could." However, Mr. Song's eyes lit up. "However what? Just say it." Su Bei scratched her head with a sly grin. "I actually owe him some money. It'd be awkward to reach out. Out of the blue, right?" Mr. Song waved it off with a laugh. "That's it? No big deal. How much is it?" "I'll pay it back for you." Su Bei couldn't believe it. Was he for real? Mr. Song thought to himself. This was about his reputation and his application for a senior teacher position. He immediately put on a generous smile. "Of course, and there's more. I have a favor to ask you too." Back looked down, fumbling around, smiling. He said, "Actually, it's not that much, only 400? 400 bucks. Mr. Tong, the homeroom teacher, hesitated for a moment. "I'll pay this 400 for you. It's best if you're the one to tell Lin Yifei. I really think we should wait until after the college entrance exams before he continues writing that novel. Even though he's transferred schools as his teacher, I'm still worried about him. If he messes up his exams, it'll ruin his future. This is a critical turning point in his life." Back smirked. "Sir, I can try, but I can't make any promises." "Actually, forget it. I'll just wait until I have the money to pay him back myself." Mr. Tong immediately and generously pulled out his phone. "I'll scan the code. You just focus on convincing him. I'm not asking you to pay for this, but you need to give him some real sincere advice. This is seriously hurting his studies." I chimed in, "Sir, that's really not necessary. I'll pay him back myself." Mr. Tong laughed and said, No need. I'm a man of my word. Don't worry about it." "All right then, I'll give it a shot." He actually transferred the 400 bucks right then and there. "Sir, I'm going back to class now. I'll talk to Lin Yifei and give you an update later." "Go ahead." As soon as Back stepped out of the office, he immediately sent me a text. "Ha ha ha ha. We hit the jackpot. You won't believe this, man. Mr. Tong just gave me 400 bucks to talk you out of writing that novel. It looks like Mr. Tong is really panicking now." I smiled and muttered to myself, I guess I'm updating a new chapter tonight to celebrate. That night, while everyone else was cramming for tomorrow's district-wide mock exams, I was busy researching how to set up an online shop. I remembered that in a few years, e-commerce and online shopping would explode into a massive wave. Starting my own store now meant I wasn't the very first person to do it, but I was definitely among the early ones. At the very least, I'd get a head start before online shopping completely disrupted the physical economy. Regarding the products, I wasn't planning on building a long-term brand just yet. My goal was to make a quick killing in the short term, so I chose a very small niche that most people tend to overlook, selling men's underwear. But since I was still a student, I had to keep this on the down low. Luckily, I just turned 18 last month, so I had my ID and met all the requirements to register the shop. Suddenly, Back sent me a message. "Holy crap, Lin Yifei, did you get hacked? Haha, no, I'm actually starting a store to sell these." No, you've definitely been hacked. See into Back's eyes. I was a total straight-edge science geek. For a top student like me to be posting stuff like this was unthinkable. He never in a million years imagined I'd be sending him photos of men's boxers. The weirdest part was that I actually told him I wanted to sell them. Since I didn't have many close friends I could trust right now, I just sent the photos over and asked Tabak to help me pick the best ones. By 10:30 that night, I finally finished setting up the product samples. I uploaded all the photos, browsed the web for a bit, and then went to sleep. The next morning I headed to class. Not long after the teacher arrived, suddenly Liu Ziyang grinned at me and said, "Hey Yifei, how's your literature looking?" "It's okay if all goes well. I'll probably be rank 1 in the entire grade." Liu Ziyang gave me a thumbs up and laughed, "Killer." But just as he said that, a familiar voice suddenly echoed through the room. A familiar voice rings out, "You just took first place in the grade, but if I catch you cheating, you're dead meat." Then right at his own wedding, he decided to play a video. It turned out to be a totally NSFW clip shown right in front of the whole crowd.